There was a lot less debt and credit in the system in 2008 than there is now. And the markets, even though they have been correcting since about January, they're nowhere near the 40% mark. They're hovering somewhere between 10 to 25% on, in worst case scenario for the NASDAQ at 25%. So I think there's still a lot of downside. I think the hurt is going to be real. And I would caution people to be ready for that if they're not already ready. And precious metals is part of the solution. It's not the entire solution, but it's definitely part of the solution.
Hi, everyone. I'm Ivan Bayuki, and welcome back to Wall Street Silver. Joining us today is Mark Yaxley. He is the Managing Director of Strategic Wealth Preservation. Mark, thanks for joining us again.
Ivan, good to be back.
Yeah, absolutely. So the world's on fire. Gas hit over $8 per gallon in California last week, and it's literally higher than minimum wage. So how long can this keep going, in your opinion?
How long can this keep going? Well, the people that run this show are really, really good at kicking the can down the road. I've come to realize that over my career in precious metals. But the amount of political pressure that will be building now in the United States, in Canada, in other G7 countries over the inflation problem is going to press them into action. So we will be seeing more and more corrective measures as central banks and governments become more determined to correct the situation that they caused in the first place, may we note as well. These same people that caused the inflation issue are now the ones that we are trusting to correct it. But I don't think it can go on much longer because the average person on the street is really hurting. I'm hearing it amongst, friends, family,
Right.
people at the golf course, wherever you go, people are talking about inflation. People are starting to get upset. Hey, nobody can afford to put $250 Canadian worth of gas in their pickup truck. I'll tell you that firsthand. That is very expensive. So it's a problem, and it's going to have to be resolved for sure.
So, Mark, you get to see all the trends at Strategic Wealth Preservation. What's moving the market in silver these days? Where's all the demand going? What are you seeing?
Yeah, a little bit of an interesting trend that's developed over the last few weeks that we've noticed at SWP is people are, I think, fed up of paying high premiums. So you see, it's a strange market where you have really high premiums on silver because there is a lot of demand for physical metal, but the price has kind of been lagging behind and not really performing as well as silver investors would like. So what they've done now, or what some silver investors are starting to do, is really look for deals. And one of the deals that's kind of come across the table as of late is 1,000-ounce silver bars. So those large industrial bars, if you can afford one, you're talking about $25,000 premium included.
Right.
People are going out and starting to buy those because they like the price point, but they hate the premiums.
So looking at the market, how bad is the effect of government intervention when they try to control markets, Mark?
Well, look, if you look at the amount of debt and credit that has been introduced into the system in the last 3 to 5 years, you can't compare it to anything else that's happened in history. What will the outcome be? How bad will the correction be? That's what I was trying to figure out really in preparation of this call. So if you look at 2008, when the stock market corrected about 40%, that was the average loss. When you look at the S&P index, look at the NASDAQ, the Dow, you're talking about 40% for the average person. There was a lot less debt and credit in the system in 2008 than there is now. And the markets, even though they have been correcting since about January, they're nowhere near the 40% mark. They're hovering somewhere between 10 to 25% on, in worst case scenario for the NASDAQ at 25%. So I think there's still a lot of downside. I think the hurt is going to be real. And I would caution people to be ready for that if they're not already ready. And precious metals is part of the solution. It's not the entire solution, but it's definitely part of the solution.
Now, do you think the Fed's actual mandate is to lower inflation, or is that just on the face and they just want to keep the US dollar alive?
I mean, inflation is certainly, it's scripted into their mandate.
Right.
So their official mandate is certainly inclusive of controlling inflation and having growth at, the healthy 2% level mark. They obviously have not achieved that. And I don't think you can give Fed full credit for the strength of the US dollar. The US dollar historically is where people flee it's one of the places that people flee in times of uncertainty, and specifically second and third world countries, which are, by the way, if you only read Canadian and US news, people are really, really hurting right now.
Oh yeah.
The war in Europe has been tremendously impactful on second and third world nations. And US dollars look pretty attractive when their currencies are debasing at a rate of 50% year over year.
Right.
Fleeing to the US dollar is not the worst move that they can make. And it's a move that historically has been used by other central banks and other investors during times of crisis. So I'm not surprised, and I wouldn't give the Fed full credit for a strong US dollar.
Right. Now let's move on to our favorite topic, silver. Will silver mines be nationalized if, let's say, the price does hit $100, $200, if it does happen?
I don't believe so. Not in first world countries, not in G7 countries anyways. In countries that you have stable governments, there are laws that would prevent nationalization unless it's an emergency situation or it's a time of war. Now, look, the Trudeau government here in Canada took full advantage of a very minor skirmish,
Right.
peaceful protests, to invoke the Emergency Act, which they're now dealing with the fallout of in Canada. So I think it's a slim chance. I don't think it's something that governments, say, oh, well, once we get really desperate for cash, we're just going to nationalize. Like here in Canada, it'd be the perfect situation because we don't hold any gold or any silver reserves. So you could think that they would go ahead and do it. I don't think that's very likely, but it'll be awfully tempting if silver ever hits $100 or $200 an ounce.
In your opinion, what is the safest jurisdiction to store metals, like Switzerland, Canada, Singapore, USA, in your opinion?
I think there's a number of good offshore jurisdictions. The top three, in my opinion, based on political stability, laws that govern wealth reporting,
Right.
private property, the lack of ability for government to seize private property during times of crisis or emergency. Top three that come to mind are Cayman. Obviously we picked it as our home base, and we think it's a fantastic place to store wealth, and a lot of private banks and mutual funds and private funds use Cayman for that reason. You've also got Liechtenstein, which is basically, if Switzerland isn't safe enough for you, Liechtenstein is the place where a lot of Swiss and German investors put money. They also have very strong property rights that protect people's money. And Singapore is the other jurisdiction that often comes up. Again, these are generally laws that favor the investor versus the government. And it's a very, very stable jurisdiction as well. So I think those are three places people should research and consider for offshore wealth preservation.
Now, there's been a lot of talk about a central bank digital currency. Will China ever introduce, or even Russia introduce, a gold back yuan or any currencies?
Well, I think you have to distinguish between a currency that is partially backed by a physical asset like gold or silver and fully backed. Fully backed, I think, would be a stretch. The value of their gold and silver holdings are probably not large enough to justify making it fully backed. Then they'd have to reprice the entire market. You'd be reinventing the modern economy. I don't foresee that happening personally.
Right.
I think it will be a slow transition. Generally, things like this take a lot of time. And yes, could they use their gold reserves to fractionally back or being part of a larger basket to back a currency? I could see that happening, a digital currency, definitely over time as adoption becomes higher and higher, and the demand becomes higher and higher for digital currencies.
Now, Mark, what does strategic wealth preservation do exactly, just for our audience to know?
It's really simple. We sell precious metals, we store precious metals for our clients, and then we buy them back eventually. So we like to say we're a fully integrated precious metals dealer and secure storage facility. Our head office is in Cayman, which has its advantages, but we also offer storage in the United States, in Canada, and Europe, and all the way in Singapore and New Zealand as well. So there's a lot of options there for our clients. One single account gets you access to a global network. So if you are holding gold and silver, and you want to store it offshore, SWP is a place that you can check out for sure.
Now, give us a clickbait title. What silver price is going to be by 2023?
I was ready to answer that question at the VRIC conference. I was all set. I had my prediction. And the question never came up. So
Oh, that's crazy.
I'm glad you asked, Ivan. I'm glad you asked. I think, you know, it's been a rough ride for silver investors. We all know that. We all wish silver was priced higher right now. There is
Yeah.
some pressure from the US dollar. US dollar is very strong. Let's not forget that. So this is not all
Yeah.
about silver underperforming. This is also about other things overperforming, and the USD being number one on that list. My prediction at the VRIC was, let's say from here to the end of the year, my prediction was on the low end, $25 US an ounce. So that's about a 10% bump from where we are now. On the high end, I think it could be as high as about $40 an ounce. And that prediction is based on a stock market crash, a full-on crash. So we do need a pretty severe crisis situation in terms of a stock market crash like we saw in 2008. And then from there, from that $40 mark, you could see additional carnage in the stock market and a rise in the silver price like we saw in 08 where it went up. Silver was up almost 400%. So,
Wow.
you know, 400% from here, you know, you'd be at about $60, $80 an ounce by the time this whole thing is done shaking out. But that's going to take more than 6 months. That could take 18 months, 24 months to happen.
Right. A lot of people we've interviewed, they're saying that they're waiting for like a hedge fund to blow up or something big to happen to see that huge correction in the market. What's your opinion on that?
Yeah, well, it's not just one hedge fund. I mean,
Right.
if you've already seen funds failing, you know, that's almost daily news now. You see people closing down funds because they've lost so much money. Those that bet heavily on crypto, you know, lost a lot of money for their investors. I think the carnage is going to be pretty widespread and devastating. And, you know, it's going to affect Main Street investors. It's going to affect, you know, Wall Street investors. This isn't when the market corrects. I think you could be looking at something in the range of 40 to 60%. It leaves no one, you know, no one unharmed.
Right.
So no single event. I think it's going to be pretty widespread. It's going to be very painful. I feel very, very bad for people that are on fixed income, you know, pensions that don't have the fluidity in their investment life cycle now to make a major change. Those are the people that especially should be considering precious metals. If they want to lower their risk profile, precious metals is important to factor in pre-crisis. That's really the time you want to be buying. Yeah.
A question just came to my mind. You see a lot of bullion dealers, they accept and they sell silver for crypto. That's like a new thing. Do you think they will stop that because they see a lot of cryptos going down? Do you think they'll stop selling silver for cryptos? Like, does Strategic Wealth Preservation sell for cryptos? I have no idea.
Yeah, it's a really good question. Actually, we're proud to say we were one of the first companies in our industry to do it. We started accepting crypto as payment for orders in 2017. We now also settle transactions in crypto. So if you sell the metal back to us, we'll pay you in crypto. But full disclosure, companies like ours, we operate in US dollars. So to hold the crypto is not really that tempting to us. What we do is we accept it and immediately sell it. We immediately hedge it for US dollars, which we use to operate the business. We're buying and selling gold in US dollars. So we're not holding it necessarily, but
it's just a transaction.
It's just a currency. Okay. It's just a currency that we accept. We convert it right back. But on a personal level, yeah, I mean, the owners of the company, we still believe in crypto. We still own crypto, and probably be buying more pretty soon.
Hopefully it doesn't go down. That's the
yeah.
Well, Mark, we really appreciate you coming down to Wall Street Silver. Like the knowledge was immense. So thank you. And hopefully we have you back on soon.
Ivan, it's always a pleasure. Love seeing what you guys are up to. It's great seeing Jim at VRIC. Sorry I missed you. You guys you're doing so well.
Thank you.
And you know, you bring so much positive energy to our space, and we're all thankful for that. Thank you.
Awesome. Well, everyone at Wall Street Silver, talk to you guys soon. And Mark, thank you again.